In this episode of Man versus Marriage, it's an episode led by Jeanne Moran called Be the Need. We will be right back after this. Welcome back to another episode of Man versus Marriage. It is I, your humble servant, the Q Dog, in the Moran family studio with my lovely wife, Jeanne. Jeanne Moran, say hello. Say what's up.
What's up?
What's going on? What's good with you?
So far, so good.
That's good news. That's great news. Hey, before we get started, first of all, I want to give a shout out to my daughter, Sophia. I asked her which hat I should wear for this particular episode. I gave her some choices. Just so you know, this cowboy hat outweighed this gorgeous Alabama Crimson Tide hat, in her opinion. So, hey, why not wear it? Feel a little bit naked, though, because if you're not watching, you're only listening. I don't have my headphones on, so I can't monitor the audio. But I'm just going to go ahead and remove the headphones and truly hope for the best. So we'll see how this goes. Before we get started, make sure that you email us, Quincy at mvsmpodcast.com. That is QUINCY at mvsmpodcast.com. And also make sure that you go and you check out quincymoran.com and check out our apparel. You can also find all our podcasts there with Man versus Marriage, the BS podcast, which we are revamping, and we are going to relaunch a brand new brand this year. It's going to be exciting. A lot of people are talking about it. Believe me. All right. So as we get into this particular episode, Jeanne wrote a sticky note. Where's the sticky note?
It's in front of me.
Oh, okay. You took the only note we had. And it's called, she said, we need to do an episode called Be the Need. And so I am going to hand this episode over to her, and she's going to lead it. And I'm going to be here as a happy contributor, and I'm going to check her out because she's my hottie.
Actually, you're going to be answering questions. So Be the Need is something that Quincy lives by. It's part of his life's philosophy. It's how he does everything in his life. So explain to them what Be the Need is to you.
You say one sentence and all of a sudden the show is now mine again.
No, open mic. You said you left me in charge and you were going to be a participant. Participate, please.
All right. So I can take no credit for Be the Need. I stole that from the Lord, I say. And it really goes, like the philosophy, I think, goes back to Mother Teresa, as a matter of fact, and my cousin Shane, one of my best friends on the entire planet. He's been a spiritual mentor and leader to me for 20 plus years. And, he just talked about the beauty of Mother Teresa, and her philosophy was to love the one in front of her. And so, as I've gone along in this journey, he's really encouraged me and taught me, one of the principles of this life and being a child of God is like, Lord, who am I and what am I to do? Like, what is my purpose? What is my calling? And I tend to overthink things. I heard my daughter talking about it this weekend, that she struggles with overthinking, and you might too, and you, the listener, might as well. And so I just wanted to make an impact. I wanted to walk out, my calling on this earth. And I just got into this routine of asking the Lord, at Shane's encouragement, who am I and what am I to do? And ultimately it came down to this, and it's be the need. Love the one in front of you. And if there is something going on in front of you, or someone from work has a need, or your family has a need, or your friends have a need, what role do you play in that? And so I just employ that particular mindset. And it doesn't mean that you meet the needs of every single thing that comes your way in life. It means the things that you're called to, what you feel an unction to do, or a drawing or a calling, you do. Don't do things out of guilt, because that is not a need that, you're supposed to meet, so to speak. But that's where the philosophy comes from.
Okay, so let's take it a little bit farther than that, because we talk about the needs of your spouse, the needs of your kids. We try to emphasize that a lot when we're helping couples. So, what does being the need for me look like to you?
Well, when it comes to you, I have to identify the things then, like, in your life that make you feel like you matter, or the things that you need, for lack of better terminology. And so, unless I understand, like, foundationally what your needs are, and know what to make a priority and what to be intentional about, then I don't know how to be the need for you, or what that may look like. And so I've got to ask you the question is, what do you need? What are your needs? And so I've even suggested this as we go through the momentum exercise that we're doing, is, what are your top 3 needs now? Because at one point it was, you want to be made a priority, you want to feel safe, you want to feel like you matter. So, that might be old technology, that might need to be upgraded. I don't know if those things have changed or evolved, kind of like your love languages can be seasonal. So, in order for me to identify what it is, that's what I have to do. And, through this process of learning to be the need, the Holy Spirit taught me some more things. Because truly, it was like going through that whole 2020 year with COVID, and things started to get chaotic. It seemed like there was no sense of control. Like, you started to worry before you understood it better. Maybe it could be something that would erase the human race, just basically. And so as I was into that role, a leadership role, and for my career, my prayer, like, I crafted a prayer in a sense to say, Lord, let me be the peace where there's chaos. Let me be hope where there's hopelessness. And so there were several things that I prayed for him to help transform me into, as a product of who he is inside of me, in order to meet the need of the moment. And I put myself in uncomfortable positions, so that I was kind of forced to grow into whatever that was. That was a very long answer, but that is
No, it's perfect.
that's where that is. Yeah.
Okay, so now again, when you're talking about, like, being the need for me and the kids are in a different phase of life now. So you and I have come to an agreement where some of them need us more in a different capacity than others. So, for example, we have one that has moved out and is on her own and living with a friend, and she thrives on, I just want to learn it for myself. I just want to figure it out for myself. And then when she needs something, she'll come back and ask for us to step in or for advice. But for the most part, she is a hands-off kid. Whereas we have others who, like our two oldest, are autistic. They're very hands-on. Their needs are very specific. Um, and then we have I'm skipping a few because the four are kind of in the same scenario, but a little bit different tactic on how we approach.
That's okay. I'll talk openly about it. Don't skip anybody.
I'm not skipping anybody, but we have like our two triplets that are more functional and capable of doing things on their own. They both have jobs. One's in college. The other one is she's learning to find her way in who she is.
Mhm.
She is very much easily influenced by outside things. So we have had to kind of bring her back in and remind her of what our values are and what our core beliefs are so that she can weigh it against what she's being told. Those two are a little less hands-on in some areas and more hands-on in others, which the audience doesn't totally understand. But one of them is autistic. She's higher function, but she doesn't necessarily always understand social cue. She doesn't understand, like today, perfect example. I asked her, I said, well, aren't you dating somebody? And she says, well, isn't that courting? And Quincy and I had to do a quick stop everything moment. And no, there's a very distinct difference in our belief structure on what dating and courting are. But because we have a child who is in a courting relationship, she just automatically adapted that to what she was doing. So those types of things, we have to be a little more involved and make sure she understands. But as far as like her money and her job and things like that, she wants to do those things on her own. So we guide when the hiccups happen, but we kind of let her do her own thing. The other one is very independent, extremely helpful, loves to do things with the family, but she is very independent, which she for a long time didn't want family. And now she does. But again, big choices are for her. She doesn't want us to make choices. She doesn't want input unless she comes up against a hiccup. Versus the younger three who all very well independent, all very well kind of in their own plan at the moment, but they still have more of the emotional need, the nurturing, they want the affection, they want the attention a little bit more. They want us involved a little bit more, even though they're older and they're getting to that stage. For you, because a lot of our listeners are dads and they've asked you questions about how do you convert from, one in particular, I can remember him asking you, I'm learning how to meet my wife's needs, but how do I transfer that to my children? Because they're very different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And at different age ranges, it changes. When they're smaller, they want daddy. They used to chase you down at the door to get your socks off your feet. It's just a little different game now. They still race to the door, but they know better than to get the first kiss. That's mine. But
I wouldn't say they race to the door, but
well, they still do sometimes. It depends on the mood. But all of them are still, they need you in a different capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So explain for the guys, how do you determine what energy to put towards what need? Did I ask that correctly? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so. I think you set it up well. And so, in learning to become a parent, it's a lot of on the job training.
Yes, very good description.
And so, I first had to learn how to align myself. I had to understand what my values were, and I had to understand what my expectation and my standard are. I'm not going to complicate this, but I'm just telling you where I began with this.
You had to know who you were so that you weren't bending when your kid kind of pushed back. I understand that.
It goes a little deeper than that. I had to know who I was so I could live who I was or who I am with conviction. And so my words would match my actions, because kids are deaf. They see things. They don't listen to things.
Fair
first.
point. Fair point.
Or let's say they're hard of hearing. but they watch you. And that's pressure that I can appreciate. I like that kind of pressure. I consider that pressure a privilege because not everybody has the privilege of having children.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my walk, I'm not going to preach or say or do something that I don't hold myself to the same standard. And so once I figured that out, it gave me the confidence to start investing in these children. And I would sit them in a group and talk with them for 45 minutes. I would talk with them about what my values are, what our family values are. And I would just continually plant and water the seeds. But I didn't stop there. I went around and I had them talk to me as well. And through the process of me teaching, part of teaching is being a great listener, because your kids, through their words and their actions, will tell you what they need from you.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is R&D, research and development. Some of it you try, and then you watch how things go. And then you learn. As you learn more about your children, you start to understand what motivates them. You start to understand how they present their needs even when they're not talking. And so I did it through the process of teaching them and training them, and then through the chore system and watching them work and looking at the things that they would complain about or get frustrated, their disposition and things of that nature. And so some of our kids I can push on a public in a public way, and and they get resilient to the challenge and they rise up. Other kids that we have, they shrink in an audience,
Mm-hmm.
and no matter how much coaching you do, they only crumble that much more. And so it was important for me to observe them and then build relationship with them, and then have them talk to me about what their needs were. Even if we're not talking about, I said I wasn't going to overcomplicate this, but I feel like it could be slightly complicated. Help me figure out where I am, or if I'm off here and making it complicated. I'm
You're
checking.
Good. You're
Okay.
okay.
So they're in the younger stages of life. You're teaching, you're training, you're coaching, you're mentoring, you're pushing. As they start to grow up and they get out of the childhood years and they go towards adolescence, now you're teaching and training and developing, but then you're saying, here's some responsibility. Let's see what you do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you give them responsibility, what they come back and they report or how they handle it will tell you about their personality. And so I use that. And so some of them, some of them, or let's say Anissa, just for specifics, she was the youngest. She loved to roughhouse. She was an active roughhouser, or Sophia, she's more of a let's sit, let's chill, let's catch a vibe, let's watch a TV. Mm-hmm. She does her own thing when she needs affection or she needs to be grounded, much like her mother. She'll come and she'll get a hug, and that'll kind of set her world back in order. Mm-hmm. And then she will go on about her business. There are some that just need positive affirmation in other ways because they're soft-hearted. They still need stern accountability, but they need that.
It's done in a different approach.
They need that enduring positive affirmation.
I think our softer ones tend to respond better to the ask questions method. Instead of pointing out something that maybe they're not doing correctly or something that maybe could be done differently, or maybe it's something that like a cycle that we see that just keeps coming in their life. instead of just saying, well, you're choosing these things. This is you're teaching people how to treat you. You're doing this, this, and this. Instead of putting it that way, I think the method that we have learned, and I watched you do this. This is how I figured it out, because I am often very hard. I am the bull in the china shop with a lot of things, because it frustrates me to see something continue in a pattern when it's like, but this is what it is. And I know what it is, and you need to recognize it. But we have two in particular that I watched you change the tone. And instead of pointing things out, you ask, okay, well, let me ask you this. Help me understand why you think someone doing this is acceptable. Where does that fall in line with your values? Is that something that you would do? Is that a way you would treat a person? And then you kind of, instead of it feeling like we're coming down on them, it allows them the opportunity to open up and see for themselves, well, no, I wouldn't do that because I don't think it's right. Okay, well, then what is it on the other side? Is it still acceptable to you because this is someone that you care about? Or is this something that maybe you think you should address? And then we help them come up with how to address it, because they are not confrontational. They do not like to feel like they are ever hurting anybody's feelings, or that they would ever make somebody feel bad. They don't ever want anybody to think that they're not going to, love them because they're doing something at the moment that maybe is incorrect or harmful.
Sure.
So that's one of the things. This is why I was asking you about Be the Need, because with 8 children, we have a plethora of different needs. Do all children have the same things? As small children, they all have the same needs. They all need the same nurturing. They all need the same training. They all need the same discipline, however you choose to do so. But they all need that grounding when they're small, because they don't know. If you let them just take off, it's chaos. But as they get older and they start maturing in who they are and finding out who they want to be, our roles change.
Mm-hmm.
And so does what they need from us. For example, our youngest, we talked about this before, in the beginning of their life as mom, going through school, going through sports, going through these things, because I chose to be at home mom and you were working and in and out with on the road or what have you, it was determined from the beginning that I handled those things. When school came up, I handled those things. Unless it was something that required a heavier hand in the conversation, and then we went in as a team and handled it.
Mm-hmm.
But I went before them and I helped plan, and when they got older and they got to high school level, we gave them leeway and said, okay, what do you want to learn? What do you want to do? And then I navigated for them how to put that path together. And then once they got to a certain point, I backed up and said, okay, well, for our youngest, she wants to go to college. Where do you want to go? I don't know. So we did several college campus, visitations, to let her see it, go look at it, get a feel for it. And we kind of explained it. This is how we shop for a house. We walk into a house and we feel it. Do I feel like I could make this home? Or does it just feel stale in here? Does it feel like the walls are coming in? Does it feel like, could we make enough space in here? These are all things that we've taught them. And when we took her down to A&M and she saw the core and the things that she loved in high school, it was immediate. This is what I want. This is what I see my future as. And then we set her up. Then you need to determine what you need to do to make that happen. I'm hands off on this one. And so that was the responsibility you're talking about. If this is the goal that you have, you are responsible to figure out how to get there. But at the same time, you filled a gap that I couldn't. Like, I helped with staying on top of her for her grades, staying on top of her for, making sure that she had everything she needed to succeed. You handled going to the gym and having your workout time and presenting questions. Okay, well, You want to do this for your running score. What do we need to do? What do you need to change in your diet? What do we need to change in your workout? These are things that I couldn't do, but because it's something that you guys had in common, she would start searching it, and then she comes to you. Okay, well, what about this? What do you think about this? What do you think? And I think that opened her up to finally trusting herself to find the answers to things. Because then when she brings it to you and she shows it to you, you're like, yeah, this all lines out. But she needed that. She needed daddy to be proud of what she was doing. She needed daddy to be accepting of what she was doing. It was there's been different instances where we've seen some need more of the guidance from daddy. Some need more of you to like come alongside and point out things that are we sure that's what you want to be doing? And other ones, they need a little bit firmer. Yeah, that's a no for me because it doesn't fit the values.
Yeah. There. And so let me give you some additional examples that may help make sense of what I'm trying to say. If you want to learn a lot about your kids through challenge and observation, do their homework with them. Why do
math in particular?
Why do I say that? Because
that's a good example.
As I did homework with all the kids that did homework, you learn a lot about how they process or how they think when they come up against something that is frustrating or that's a challenge. One girl in particular, she was dead set on doing her math a certain way. And I said, okay, well, let's walk through this. And she would continue to do it her way. And so it came to the point where I started to get frustrated. And there was no need for me to get frustrated because I knew how to do it. Mm-hmm. So I had to just come flat out and I had to ask a question. I said, are you more interested in doing it your way than getting it right? And she said, yes. I said, okay, that's all I need to know. So from here on, I know what my role is. It's to encourage you, is to say, this is the proper way. Now I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to let you walk it out. And when you finally get to the point of walking it out and you are frustrated and things do not work and you come back to me, I won't throw it in your face. I'll say, okay, now you're ready because you have proven you have a need to prove to yourself what X, Y, and Z is, even if it's wrong.
Yep.
And once you prove it's wrong, then you come back and say, can you help me see how to fix this? And I think about the nature of God and how, not to make this religious, but why patience is such a virtue. Because think of all the times that in your own life, you, the listener, you, Jeannie, you, Quincy, you feel that unction to do things a particular way, but you are committed, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent,
this
to do it
more fun.
I'm going to do it my way.
Uh-huh.
And so therein is the idea that it's like, okay, if you have to do it your way to figure it out, then I'm going to respect that. And that was at like probably 9 or 10 years old. Other kids with their homework, you guide them along a little bit, like you coach them. You show them just enough of the next step where they get it, the light turns on, they're excited. You do another one, then it becomes fun. That's a kid that you know that you can really give true mentorship to, because they have not yet come to the point where you have to force them to go do it on their own.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're not teachable. It's just, unless you take your hands off and force them to get uncomfortable, like you're not helping them through everything, they have to be measured on what they've learned.
We had to do that with one. Normally she's shy, very quiet, didn't talk to people. If we tried to get her to, even in front of the family, just her siblings, if we tried to get her to stand up in the room and tell us a story or say something. She just absolutely fell apart. Could not do it. And we learned at a very young age, let her be shy, nudge her a little bit, but let her be shy because she had a trust issue and she didn't know. The only person that she was 100% always okay with was her twin. You could put her with her twin and her twin would start talking and she would follow whatever she was doing because she trusted her twin. But anybody else, and she was just like, And she always hid behind you and me until she had a medical situation. And she and I were going to the hospital and people were talking to me while she was laying in a bed and ignoring her. And it bothered her. And it bothered me because I could see her getting frustrated because nobody's talking to me. And that was our moment when everything kind of changed gears because I stopped the doctors and said, wait a minute, time out. They wanted her to take this medication. She took it twice. It made her throw up. She didn't like it. She couldn't keep her food down. She's frustrated because if she can't keep food down, she can't go home. And finally, I turned around and I said, do you want to take this? And the doctor said, well, what does she have to say? I said, that's exactly it. What does she have to say? Because she's taking it. She's the one feeling it. It's not up to me. And it pissed him off because I let my 12-year-old have a say. But the moment I said, what do you want? What do you want to do? She looked right at me and said, I don't want to take it anymore. I don't like it. I don't like the way it makes me feel. And he got mad and stormed out and did his thing. And she looked at me and she was like, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I said, you're not. But until you learn to use your voice, they're going to keep asking me. I'm not the one going through it. So I need you to start talking and telling people. And from that moment forward, she slowly started coming out. Every time we went to a neurology appointment and she would sit down on the table, they would start asking me questions and I would look to her and I would say, tell her. And she would start giving information. And when she would get stuck on something, she would look to me to fill it in. Or, if she was uncomfortable saying something, she would look to me and I would ask, do you want me to fill in? But I gave her the opportunity, one, to learn that she could trust her own voice. She didn't need her twin. She didn't need me. Two, I didn't push her onto people because it crushed her. To try and force her to do something that for whatever reason she wasn't prepared to do, she would just shrink in on herself and then she wouldn't talk to anybody for days.
Yeah, there's like you learn to push your children out into discomfort, but if they don't show signs of resiliency, your child sinks further, like crumbles even more. And you have to find other mechanisms to help them gain resiliency. And so that's where the second piece of this comes in. If you have multiple kids, if you have a group of kids at home, 2 or 3 kids, even 2 kids it might work with. But I learned a process at work called Kaizen. I thought it was Kaizen, but it's Kaizen. And so that's where that helps the lean process. You help define people's roles. You have to help identify what needs to get done at the place of business in order to accomplish said goal. And so when I learned about that, I was like, I want to prepare my kids for the future. So we're going to start now. So I sat them down and we talked about the chores in the house. Some of the kids were like 6, from like 6 to 10 or something like that. And so I sat them around the table and I started talking to them. And talk to your kids. Like they're little people, have conversations with them and say, hey, this is an example. Hey guys, you know what? This laundry thing is really it's a big problem. You guys, what are some of the problems you see? Or, we look at it and like, oh, this is happening and that's happening. It's like, yeah, what are we going to do about it? So you get them to engage in thought process and start coming up with solutions to a problem and you listen to what they talk about. And so what I did was I worked with my kids to come up with a chore list. And then we worked with how do these chores get distributed?
We did the buddy system first.
And then we went with, okay, not only are you guys coming up with the plan, you guys are also going to come up with the solution. Now we're going to come up with teaching you guys how does it feel to be a leader, to hold people accountable. Because my thought was if you could learn how to lead your siblings when you get out into this natural world and in real life, if you can lead your siblings, you can lead just about anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so we taught them the value of teamwork, accountability, and accomplishment. And so they would nominate a chore checker, and the chore checker would go and check the chore. And if the chore checker said it was good, and it was good, we're good. If the chore checker said it was good and it wasn't complete, the chore checker had to own that and
then do the chore.
do the chore. And so,
which led to some people getting voted to be chore checker more than once.
Well,
because nobody wanted the job.
And as you went along, you had to modify it a little bit so somebody couldn't become the chore checker 3 or 4 weeks in a row. You know, that the plan evolved, but all of that was for the greater experience of observing how my kids think,
Mm-hmm.
observing how they work in a group, observing how they handle adversity. One of my children, you know, I can say she because I have 7 girls. It'd be too obvious if I said he. But she does not want you to come and ask her if she needs help. She wants to do it her way on her own. And she's very much, if I need you, I'll come and find you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to do it my way on my own. If you try to approach me and tell me how it needs to be done, then I'm going to lash out at you. And so I had to modify my approach for her personality. That does not in any way mean that I don't hold her accountable.
Mm-mm.
Because I teach the family there's a standard. And as long as you're doing the best that you are possible, that's possible for you, if you're doing the best you can do, that's the standard I'm going to hold you accountable to. And so as the kids grow, your relationship goes into like a seasonal rotation. And you'll get closer, you'll get tighter, you'll build more trust. Well, that was something that probably would have been nice to know. Anyway, so with that being said, I had to evolve as well, because I can be a very much just do what I said to do and shut up and get it done. But very few people respond to that. I'll tell you this. I don't respond well to
Mm-hmm.
that. Now, there are particular times in particular situations where I need someone to be that direct with me, because I don't want to Jimmy Jack around. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, will you please shut up and just get this done? And I'm like, I need that from you, so I go get the right thing done. But it's all built through the value of relationship. And that is how I learned to become the need. And some of it I try and fail. Some of it I try and succeed. Some of it I know I can hold. I can lean in harder on accountability for some than others. But they all know the standard.
But here's something that I don't know if you realize, and maybe the listener doesn't either. Our children became more comfortable with asking for what they need by watching you and how you treat me. So they learn that in our house, for our family, boys open doors. Boys are the one that lead. When we go out somewhere, daddy leads mom wherever we go. He holds my hand, or he has his hand on the small of my back. I had to explain to them, I get uncomfortable in crowds. I get uncomfortable in places where I feel like spaces get small. Your dad does this for me so that I know nothing's going to happen to me because I trust your dad to take me wherever I need to go. And then I noticed when they go places and they're in a crowd, especially the ones who shy up or aren't real comfortable, the others will grab a hand and they don't care that they're grown. They will grab a hand and they will walk through a crowd, or they will link arms and they will walk through a crowd because they have learned it's a similar trait to me. And one may be a little more comfortable than the other, or a little more forward than the other. And so they take that lead role and they do it. They've learned that when you and I have conflict and there's a problem, we may not always talk about it in the moment. So they see what's going on. They know something's wrong. They know what our personalities are. But they also know that we talk about it, because we will tell them, Mom and Dad are going to go in the other room. We need to go have a conversation. We don't necessarily shield them from arguments, but we don't hash out big stuff in front of them either. But we had one where we disagreed on a dress that one of the girls had, and it wasn't funny, but looking back on it later, it was funny because it was the girls that came to us and said this wasn't handled right. So one of our daughters came out wearing a dress that the other one had owned the year before. The older daughter is more well endowed, so it fit differently on the younger one.
There were still way too many boobs hanging out of that dress.
But it fit differently. And so the question amongst the girls and myself was, well, it was okay for this one. Why is it not okay for that one? And the way the conversation came out, Quincy made a comment about the dress, and it wasn't meant to be rude or hurtful. I know that, you know that, but in the moment that it happened, I watched her face and I watched the other girl's face, and I told him, I said, you could have said that a little differently. We could have approached that differently, because she was excited to come out and try on these dresses. She's looking for something to wear for her deal. And so
let's tell them what you really said. You're going to give her a complex. And that pissed me off.
I did. And here's why. This particular child takes your word as law, that your word is gold to her. Your approval is extremely important to her. And so when I watched her face, she was very excited to wear the dress. She thought it was really pretty. She felt pretty. She didn't want to wear that dress, but it was just how she felt in the moment. And then from that moment on, every dress she tried on, she just was like, whatever. So anyway, the girls talked to Quincy and told him, it was the way you talked to Mom. It wasn't the dress at all. It was how you talked to Mom, because we don't talk to each other that way. That was an off moment for both of us. And for them to feel comfortable enough to come and say, Dad, that wasn't right. That didn't feel right. For them to feel confident enough to come and say something to you in a manner that is correcting, but not, digging at you. That says something about how we have raised them.
Yeah. Well, let me jump in there real quick, because they weren't correcting me. What they were doing was what they saw me do, which is holding me accountable to a standard.
Mm-hmm.
And because you build and develop your relationship, then your children build trust with you. Doesn't happen with every kid. We have one that we have had struggles with. Multiple kids we've had struggles with, which you're going to.
Yeah, they're growing. They've got to learn. This
goes deeper. But I can't, even though it may sound ambiguous, because I want to give you the ABC, just the direct do each thing, but it doesn't work that way, because you need to invest time into learning, talking, and discussing with your children. And something you said earlier, I just want to address this real quick. If you see me looking down at my phone, it's because my daughter is having car trouble. And I am thankful that her boyfriend's dad saw it, so she didn't drive 75 miles an hour back to where she was going, and something catastrophic and fatal could have happened. So thank God for that. It's much less than I anticipated, which is a win. But the shop only takes cash, and I guess they didn't tell anybody that.
Oh no.
So she's like, I'll use this that you gave me. I'll use this that mom gave me. And I said, no, you will not. You will use this. She's like, yeah, but I still have it. And I said,
Oops.
shut your face. You will do this and we will work it out. And I told you earlier, sometimes you got to have that. But here's, listen, what I'm giving you is testimony. And testimony is something that I have gone through, and I have receipts. And I don't have the best relationship with all of my children. That's a fact.
Mm.
You know, autism, I'm struggling there. I'm struggling with autism. And autism is struggling with me. But overall, when I finally came to my senses and figured and found what my priorities are and what they were, I was able to shift my focus. I observe you, I talk to you, I communicate with you. The way that I find things out about you is by this philosophy. I'm a firm believer that people tell you what they need, even when they're not talking about their needs. So I observe that. I study people because people intrigue me. But I love you deeply, and I love my children deeply. And being a husband means the world to me. Being a father means the world to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I set out to observe and understand and build relationships with my children. And that's why I want to emphasize, you must know your standard. You must know what your set of values are. And then you must live them, not to perfection, but to a standard of excellence in your home, because you will be the true north to your family.
Mm-hmm.
You will, when things are going crazy, like, they will look and say, and I've only heard this, and you tell me if I'm wrong, well, I know dad will, or I know whatever's happening, I know dad would do this, or,
But the best one, and I love it, because the girls will say, they'll try something on, or they'll say, well, what do you think about? And all I have to say is, what would your dad say? What is your dad's standard? And everybody stops and goes, okay, so what if I wear a sweater? Or what if I do? And it's like, okay, so they know, and I don't have to force anything at all. I can just bring up, what would your dad say? What is your dad's opinion on what you're talking about? Or what does your dad feel about this scenario? What have you watched us do? And majority of them will stop and go and can actually tell me, well, he would say this, or yeah, you're right, he probably wouldn't like that. And so it helps, because I don't have to push anything any direction. You just have to ask the question. We joke because the girls would joke, what would Quincy do? And it was a game, because it was like, what would your dad do? And then
I have no idea about what you're talking about.
well, they were talking about helping somebody, and it was a joke, because if somebody needs help, dad will help. And so it was, well, what will Quincy do? And it's like, yeah, but dad will help anybody. I don't know if I want to help this person. And it wasn't bad. It was somebody that they were kind of like, I don't want to, but we did. But anyway, it's something that they trust, because they've seen you be this person.
Yeah.
This whole time. And they know who you were before. They were smaller, but we talk about it. It's like, I used to do these things. I understand. I was your age once. I did stupid too. I get it. I've made these mistakes. What I'm telling you is I am not that person now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why. Now, which version of me do you appreciate more? And it makes them think about how who they are and what they do affects those around them.
Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily. I really not necessarily. I wasn't talking about my modesty policy.
I was talking in general.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is I'm not. I don't want to divulge
Personal information.
any information regarding this, but if there is something going on and there's a moral decision that needs to be made, and there may be chaos or concern or fear associated with a situation, fear of outcome or anything. I've heard I've heard you say in the past, well, this is what we will do because I know your dad would do X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I am a proponent of doing things to make your family proud.
Mm-hmm.
I am a proponent of doing things to make your parents proud. In this particular culture and climate, it becomes all about you. Don't do anything associated with making other people proud. Do it for you. And that comes from a place of parents trying to live through their kids in a very unhealthy way.
Mm-hmm.
But when you boil it all down, yes, you do represent your family. Yes, you do represent your parents. Yes, you do have the opportunity to go out into society and be a respectable, honorable person of integrity, and you represent this family's name. And here's our standard, and this is what we live by. Now, you go out and you will develop your own standard. You'll develop your own set of values. But through the process of understanding who I am and what our values are, and then teaching them through weekly, so at some points it was daily during the week conversations, I taught them and influenced them based on what my values were. And then I lived them in front of them. And then I observed them in their life, doing artwork, playing games, playing board games together, homework, chores, all those things. And then I would ask them, what do you need from me?
Mm-hmm.
Just like I would ask you. And a lot of times people don't know their needs. So it causes them to think. And then what I would do is there would come a point where it's like, now it's time to walk out what I've taught you. So I intentionally pull back and I say, okay, I'm not going to get involved. It's time for you to figure it out and take a hands off approach because they will prove something to themselves,
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that proving to themselves, they find out that they do still need help and that they are not approaching this situation properly. But there again, the foundation of everything that I do is a foundation of love. So eventually they come back,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can coach them through it. So there's teaching, there's training, there's accountability. One of the biggest pieces of this to be the need for your family is to observe them, engage in conversation, put them in sticky situations, whether it is a chore or it is games or whatever, to see how they respond. And then because you have such a different perspective from where they are. And so through the process of doing that, what you say and do, your child will respond in a certain way. And so, at a certain point, if you can push harder and harder and harder on one of your children, and it will make that person stronger and more resilient, like being at the gym and, tearing the muscle a little bit. There's a little bit of pain in the gain, but how you can push someone. And some of the other girls are softer, so you can't necessarily do that. To address something you said earlier before we wrap this up, there is at least one of the girls that is very soft-hearted and would never want to offend anybody that she's come in contact with. That can be very unhealthy. And so there are times where, even with that personality makeup, you must lean in hard to that personality, because now you're allowing yourself to be walked over.
Yeah, we did that once with her. Our rules for living here after you're 18 are pretty easy, I would think. We have curfews and things still, and she was late. I didn't get any information. I didn't get a phone call. It was after 2:30 in the morning, and she should have been home midnight, 12:30 at the latest, given where she was and what she was doing. And so I got a text that said, well, my friends wouldn't get out of my car. I said, well, then you need to tell your friends that they're coming home with you, or you need to boot them out of the car because they just cost you. Now you're in trouble. And so when she got home, she was upset. And I had to explain, because I was angry, but I wasn't angry that she was out late. I was angry because the rule is, if you're going to be late past curfew, I want a call. I want a text message. I want a phone call. I want to know from you that you are okay. You're not late because you were in an accident. You're not late because there was a problem. You're okay. This is what's happening, and I'll be home. And then you give me an estimated guess on when you'll be home. And if it doesn't work for me, I'll say, well, you have 20 minutes. But though it's a common courtesy thing for me, because I already struggle with sleep. And if I know that you're out and you're out past time, it worries me. And when your daddy is working and he's not in town and these kind of things pop up, I get nervous, because I have to then determine who's home, who's not home, where do I need to be. There's a lot of variables that you, the child, do not think about, because it's not your stress, it's mine. It's not your responsibility, it is mine. So when she came home that night, I laid into her a little bit, but I explained to her, this is why this is important to me, because it worries me. I don't know if you're okay. I don't know where I need to be. It's my job as your mama to be there when those things happen, to know if you need help.
And also, to interject, that there's a standard in this home. And because we like you a lot, doesn't matter.
No, but it upset her to know that she had upset me and disappointed me. And so it took her a couple of days. She apologized and stuff. And all I did, it wasn't a big grounding, because of the simple fact that this is the first time. This was the first time that we actually, we had corrected it once before. Now we're on the second go. Okay, now we're in a position where there has to be a consequence, because the talk didn't cover it. So I backed her curfew up for a week. And then Quincy and I were going to be gone, which meant people couldn't come over. So in essence, she was grounded for a week. Yes, she's an adult, but she lives in my home. These are the rules. So at the end of that week, from that point on, I have gotten a text message or a phone call anytime she's going to be past a certain time. Mama, I'm going to go do this. And then it was little things, like she would go get gas at 11:30 at night. Baby, you need to go get gas on your way to work, not after work. Yep. And here's why. And it frustrated her, because she's grown. It's just easier to get it after work because there's not a lot of people out. But it's also easier for bad things to happen at that time of night. So it's not just about the standard. It's not just about enforcing the rules, but it's about being what they need in the moment. You need to put yourself in my shoes. We've done this multiple times with one of our other daughters. Put yourself in my shoes. You're the mom, and your kid comes to you, and that they're lying to you. And yet they're complaining because you don't trust them. How does that make sense? Help me understand what I'm supposed to do in that situation. And it forces it back on them for a minute. And she struggled.
Yeah, it forces critical thinking, which you need to develop.
She struggled with it because she wanted to tell me that I should just trust her because she wants me to trust her. But when I switched the roles on her and said, okay, your kid comes to you and does this, and they've got a pattern of not telling the truth over the last several days. What do you do? What am I supposed? I'm just supposed to accept whatever said and trust it now when you've shown a pattern of not. And she struggled with it because she wanted so badly to for me to get over it and be okay and everything to be fine. But when I switched it on her, it was like, oh, well, no, I wouldn't be okay with somebody lying to me 3 times in a row. No, I wouldn't be okay with somebody just wanting me to let it go. Okay, so what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
And forcing her to put herself in the position to determine for me, what are you going to do to prove this to me now? And it forced her to have to see parenting, A, is not easy. And B, what is your standard? I won't accept lying. So let's switch the roles. Would you accept it? Is this okay to you? Is this your standard in life? Somebody can lie to you to your face X amount of times and you're just going to wipe it clean. Well, no. Then why does that need to be my standard? And it changed some things in the house where now that they're older and they're going through things, I think it's easier for them to come to us when they need something because it's not a judgment. If you need something from me, I want you to talk to me. If you're not sure about something, we have conversations about sex and jokes and things like that. Our kids, I made it a point when we homeschooled, they're not taking regular sex ed classes. They took what they needed to figure out the science of things. But as far as like learning to put a condom on and stuff like that, we stopped. All that stuff was put on hold. And the reason we did that was because Quincy and I believe that our children need to learn sex with marriage. Not it's okay for anybody for whatever reason because you have a connection. But I started working with them when people would make dirty jokes and say something. I would ask them, what does that mean? And I'm not being rude about it and I'm not making them feel bad about it. It's like, okay, explain to me where you heard that so I can help you understand if it's right. And it made them comfortable enough to start asking me things when stuff would come up. They don't always ask it in front of dad because it's uncomfortable and I get it. They're girls. But we actually had a conversation one night in the J3 house. All of us, even when Cy lived with us, we were all sitting in the room and the girls started asking questions and he started making comments. And I told them, and a lot of people probably wouldn't agree with this, and that's okay. I said, look, I will answer any questions you have. No judgment. I'm not going to ask you if you've done it. I'm not going to ask you any of those things. If there's something you want to know, ask me. And they did. And it blew my mind, some of the things that they asked. But as soon as I answered everything, 90% of it was us laughing because it's just an uncomfortable topic.
Sure.
And they were all, and of course you've got, our kids like to tease each other and joke back and forth and make, that's what she said jokes and stuff like that. So it was a comfortable environment for an uncomfortable topic.
Sure.
So now, fast forward 4 or 5 years, one of our daughters gets in a start of a relationship with somebody and she let him know from the beginning, I'm okay up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. If there's anything you want after that, I'm not ready for this relationship and we'll just stay friends and we'll call it a quit. And she was misled. And so when it came to the conversation and when she was struggling with, I really like this guy and I kind of want to continue things, but he's putting me in a position I'm uncomfortable with. And then she finally came to me and started talking about, he's asking for these sexual things and he's talking about these things. And she's like, in her words, he wants girlfriend benefits, but he doesn't want a commitment. She goes, I'm not okay with that. I said, okay, well, then you have your answer. You know what you need to do. But she was still struggling with Is it okay that I don't want these things? Because it's expected in this generation that this is what people do.
Yeah.
And I just asked her, I said, what is your standard? Not mine, not dad's. What is your standard for you? She said, I don't want to get pregnant. I got big plans. She goes, I want to have kids later, but if I was to get pregnant, it ruins my life. A guy can just go and do whatever he wants if he chooses, but I can't go to school. I have to raise somebody. I can't do the job I want to do because I'm responsible for another human being. She goes, and even if I didn't get pregnant, do I want that connection with this person when I don't know that we're going to be together in 6 months? And I looked at her and I said, okay, so what's your standard? And she goes, not that. I said, okay. Yes, Dad's like, score. But because of what we have taught them, she's able to voice to somebody that she's trying to date, these are my needs. These are my standards. This is what is acceptable. This is not acceptable. This is a conversation topic for later. Had we not built that structure, had you not been the centrical force of the family that set that standard, I don't know that those same decisions would have been made.
I agree.
So I appreciate that. And I know this has gone long, but there's one other area I want you to discuss. You have a very specific job. It's a specialty job niche for your industry. But you don't stop what you do there. So how does Be the Need fit in the workplace? Do you just, a lot of people believe in just going to work and doing your 9 to 5 and doing your job and your job only and just staying in your lane and what have you. I know because I know you. And I know the people that work with you know this because this has been your standard for 26 years.
No, it has not been my standard for 26 years.
Yes, it has, because even though you weren't doing it with your job, you did it for everybody else. Chris wanted to start a radio station. Let's do it. This person
okay, you corrected me there.
Yes, let's do it.
Thank you.
You have always been, that has always been your personality.
That's fair.
It has just been in the recent years that you have developed it into, how does that fit my purpose? How does that fit my life now? And how do I set the boundary on how much of a need I can fill and how much of a need is not my responsibility? So as easily as you can, how do you fashion that with your job or the other things you do besides being my husband and the father to 8?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the easiest way I can tell you is the 4R principle that I developed in this whole Live a New philosophy. And
I'm laughing because you have a pattern. You have structures and acronyms and things for everything you do. I love it because it makes it easy for me to understand what you're doing. Go ahead. What's your 4 R's?
That's just the way.
It's how you compartmentalize so that you.
It's the way I do it. So, you know, I said a long time ago that I had to revamp my operating system, and that's what I did. So I basically put together a philosophy. So, you know, what I do, and I would teach everybody this when, after I developed it as a manager, I would just, number one, before the 4 R's, here's where it is. My goal is to make a positive impact on humanity, whether I'm at Walmart or I'm at work. And that's that. I want to be the best version of myself that I can. I earnestly want to go out there and connect with people, because I believe that is part of my calling, to impact people in a positive way. So I look at it this way, the 4 R's. The first thing is you've got to be resourceful. So how can I be a resource for you? And I'm doing this not expecting anything in return on all, if not all cases. So how can I be a resource? How can I be as reliable as possible? Like I'm going to do what I say, I'm going to say what I do. How can I be, or how can I develop myself in being resilient? Because adversity is coming. And I want to rise above that. I want to be better because of it. I want to be better in spite of it. And lastly, the fourth R is I want to be relentless in what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be relentless in loving my people. I want to be relentless as a resource to those that I'm here to serve, because that's how I look at it. I'm here as a servant leader in my home to my wife. I'm in service to my wife. I'm in service to my children. I take that example from none other than Jesus Christ. He had all the power, yet he came and he served.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible says he didn't come to be served, he came to serve. I think that's a pretty good standard to live by. And so I compartmentalize, actually, I put what I do on behalf of people in that 4R category, and I do my best to live it every day, wherever I go. How can I be a resource to you? So it might mean, instead of me talking, I need to sit here and listen to what it is you have to say,
Mm-hmm.
so I can help you solve problems. But that is the way that I do it, from the mindset of I want to make a positive impact on humanity. Because I believe it's my calling to do that. And I love to do that because I love people. I love people. And whoever's listening, you may be a person who does not love people. Well, maybe that's not your calling.
But there's still a way to do that too, because you are more people oriented than I am. I am more about my group of people. Like our kids in Quincy are that's it. I can count on one hand how many people are as close to me as these 9. And it's not because there aren't the good people in the world. It's because I am very selective about who I let close in my circle. But I don't hold back. If I can help someone and I can be a resource to somebody, I will.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel like I can help in any capacity without overextending us, I will. But I'm not like you in the way that I don't go looking for it. Like you can go into any room, and if you feel that somebody needs something, you will just step up and do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it is. I'm more reserved on that, and that's issues that I deal with because I don't trust what I'm going to do or what the response is going to be, because some people don't want it, and that's fine. But I have not learned that balance.
Well, and the thing is just to put a bow on it, there is a level of maturity that needs to be developed in that area, because like we were taught, a strength overextended becomes a weakness. And there are times, as I first got into this, that I would build resentment because of hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody will say, I'm all in. And I'll say, oh, I'm all in. Let's do this. And
When
I'm the
that's
only
5
one.
and 50.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
And so there's maturity that needs to come along. And then understanding is, maybe somebody has a need, but that need is not yours.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You and I have different strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this differs, because there are people like you who you love to teach, you love to be in the middle of whatever's going on, because if you can fix it, you can help with it, you can be a resource, you will. For me, my strengths are different. I can still be a resource and I can still help, but there are a select group of people that I believe God puts in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, the joke for years was inked pastor, because people looked at your tattoos and found out you were a pastor, and it was like, those two don't go together, but they do. And it's more common than people think. But because at that time there was that stigma to it, it was different. But now you and I'm covered. You have some. I can reach somebody who looks like me a little easier than someone who walks up in a suit. Why? Because I'm on common ground. It's not necessarily that I'm better than anybody else. It is simply there are people in your life that God sets before you, and he will put them in your path for what you are there to serve. That's why Be the Need is so important. And I thought this was one of the things that you needed to talk about, because in what we do with Man versus Marriage, your biggest need to fill starts with me and our children.
That's my first ministry. Yes.
Exactly. So the first group of people that God put before you to fill the need was us.
Mm-hmm.
And you've done that. You do that very well. And then from there, your philosophy and your passion and your ability to help and impact others has grown. But it had to come from the nucleus of the family first.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I wanted you to talk about this, because I think there are a lot of guys that we deal with in Man versus Marriage, and it's like, well, I'm trying to meet her need, and I'm trying to do this, and I'm trying to do this, and I'm trying. Okay, stop everything. What's your primary? If we're gonna do this, let's narrow it down to one thing. You need to be the need. Okay, what is your wife's needs? Start there. Once you can get a grasp on that, then you can branch out to a little bit more. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can't take care of your kids. I'm not saying you ignore your kids. I'm saying focus on what you can impact first.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing that's going to teach your children, that's going to grow your household, that's going to help your family is you and your wife, you and your spouse. How do we get that need set? How do we be the example? Because that's what they're going to learn from.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to learn from everything that we tell them. They're not going to learn from the TV. They're not going to learn from the people around them. Not if you do it right. They're going to learn from watching us. So that's why this episode, I think, hit me the way that it did, because that was one of the first things when we say, where do you start? What do you want? What are your needs? Let's start there. And then let's develop being the need for your spouse, both sides. When you start doing that and your kids start seeing it, you will start to see a shift in how they behave.
Mm-hmm.
You will start to see a shift in how they talk to you, because they're going to see the shift in you. They're going to see the shift in your relationship. If all they see is the back and forth and the taking digs and the smart ass comments and things like that, guess what kind of kids you're going to raise? And then you're going to wonder why you want to pull your hair out because you and your kid are like this.
I mean, and we have some of that. I mean, I just recently, and we'll wrap this up here pretty quick.
But they grew up in the first 10 years. They had the first 10 years of our marriage as the start of their example. The first 5 years of their life is when they learn a lot of who they are. They are a sponge at that point. And some of our hardest heads they were all born in that first 10 years. Some of our hardest heads saw more things than others in that first 10-year span. The shift took a little bit longer than we anticipated.
Well, here's what I'll encourage you with. In order to lead your family, you need to align your own principles. You need to. It's important. It's not important. It's not. what it is mandatory.
Yeah.
That's what I need to say. I'm looking for a good word for it. It's mandatory that you align yourself and set a standard for yourself, and you align yourself and you figure out what are your values. Because then you can sit with your wife and you could talk about what your shared values are. And then you create the values for your home.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes, what you compare things to if there's a question. And the case in point is, Dad, XYZ. I said, well, what do the family values say?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mirror. And that makes it easy, even though it's tough. You have to establish it. Now, don't think because you're different for a week or 2 weeks or a month that everything's going to change.
Mm-mm.
Because there's that really valuable thing that, Andy Frisella said, which is people have the right not to believe you when you have shown them that you can't be trusted. You give them reason you give them reason not to believe in you. And so with that, establish and align who you are and your values and your standards. Then along with your spouse, you can define the same for your household. Then you will walk around your house as the leader of your home without telling everybody you have to do what I say because I'm the leader. A great leader doesn't do that. A great leader sets the people up around him for success and serves. And then when the family needs him, he arises. And when the family needs direction, counsel, prayer, etc., they will look to you. And when the family needs nurturing and those other things, they will look to mom.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to establish that first. It's mandatory. So get your house in order. If you're not, if you're just listening, your house is you. Get it in order and understand what your standard is and understand what your values are. And there are some things that may evolve slightly or may change as you grow in your life and as you mature as a parent, but there are some values that you're not going to compromise. And that's okay, even if it's uncomfortable. But it's at that point when you establish those things and then you start to interact and build relationships with your kids, like get them off of their telephone and actually engage them and help them with their homework and
memories.
Definitely make memories. Sit your kids down and talk to them about life, about culture, about your faith. Talk to them about these things and build credibility and influence and make it fun. When there's a family talk that's difficult, do it from a foundation of love. And sometimes you will have to lean in on them, and that is the way it goes.
I think that it's really important to stress that you share some of your mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
When you make a mistake, you own it immediately. But when your kids are doing something and you want them to learn a lesson, I think it's very impactful for them to realize, look, I made this mistake.
Sure.
Okay. When I was your age, I did what you're talking about. And this is the outcome of that, not just the consequence and the punishment, but this is how I felt afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
This is what stuck with me, and I had to learn to uproot it because I created this.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give them that example because a lot of times I think we were taught this, so we started that way. You do as I say. I'm the parent. This is what it is, period. You don't get to ask why. You don't get to question blah, 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 blah. And you get put on this shelf with your kids because now you're unapproachable.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not allowing. Now, when they're older, we let them ask questions when they were younger. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? And we helped explain this is why, this is the rule. This is why we believe this. As they got older and they would buck and, well, why can't I know why you want me? You're grown now. You know why.
Mm-hmm.
This is not about us butting heads anymore. This is the standard. You do or you don't.
Yeah.
But there is also, when they're older, by us telling them what we've done wrong, the mistakes that we've made, the lessons that we've learned, the heartaches that we've had, the things that we have gone through, so that we know, look, I'm 47 years old. I got 27 years on where you're at right now. I know what you're dealing with. These are your options.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives them a safe place to land, soft place to land, because now I've exposed my scars. I've exposed my wounds. Now you can expose yours, and I can help you before you rip them any worse. That's, I think, one of the things that you hadn't mentioned that I think is very important and extremely impactful, and it keeps you approachable to your children, because you're not just slamming down rules and reasons. You
Correct.
are helping them understand your experience so that they can hopefully make a good choice for their experience.
Yeah, and that's a vital part of the monologuing.
Mm-hmm.
I am one who, I'm good with dialogue back and forth to a degree, but I taught my kids that there is a place and time where I will say, because I said so, and that is the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Period. But otherwise, we can talk through things, because that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
But that's part of life, though, too, because sometimes in a job, you might want to buck and say, well, but why? And your boss is like, no, this is the job description. This is what I asked you to do. Go get your crap done.
yeah, this is what needs to happen.
And that's part of why we do that, because when you leave this house, what you are going to come up against is not going to be mom and dad holding your hand. These are other people you are going to be accountable to. And if your boss says XYZ, you don't get to question.
Oh, you can.
In some scenarios, you don't get to question. In other scenarios, you're going to question, and they're going to say, well, there's the door.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's all teachable stuff. That's
I agree.
all.
That's the beauty of it is it's teaching, and you're going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And like Jeannie said, when you fail at it,
own it.
You sit them down and you say, hey,
I suck. This is what happened.
I blew it, man. And this is where it's at. So I hope this episode has helped you. And did the episode meet what you expected?
Yes, because the whole point was your philosophy on be the need isn't just in your job or in your ministry, which I think that was how it originally started to become developed because of the situation you were in at the time. But it is actually the nucleus of everything that you are and what you do, as helping men become better men, becoming better husbands, becoming better fathers. This is it. This is the nucleus of all of it. You need to build your values and your standard, and you need to apply it to those who have been entrusted to you as your spouse, your children, your job, your whatever. But it starts with you. What do you need? That's the first one, is you got to be your own need. You got to meet your own need. If you need to get healthy, then you need to get healthy.
Well, and that's exactly it. It's why I started off by saying, and thank you for saying that part of it, because I missed saying that part of it. And once you align yourself, you see what your standard is and what your values are. That helps you discover what your needs are, so you can articulate. So kudos to you, honey, because that is an important thing. Because you're going to ask your wife, what are your needs, and she's going to go,
I don't know.
Bleep if I know. And so, it's important for you. It's mandatory for you to understand what your needs are, and that is developed over time. Because right now you've been operating in this particular way for so long, it's all you know. Mm-hmm. And so this will help you. This will change your life. And it doesn't mean you'll never have to have a hard discussion with your child. Look, it was just a couple of weeks ago that I had to have a very hard discussion with my child, one of my children. And I said, listen, you are living a double standard. And this is going to be hard to hear, but I want you to know that I see it for what it is. I said, you want all the forgiveness for all the things that you've done. You know, at one point you trashed our family. You trashed us. You came back. But you want forgiveness for all those things. And you do not want to forgive people for what you say they've done wrong to you. Even though we have actively taken steps to do what's right and been intentional about doing it. And she was very honest. And she said, you're right. I don't know how to forgive you. I said, well, that's understandable because I had issues with that myself, with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And some things are humbling when you go through experiences, and being a parent is very humbling.
I've apologized to my mother excessively over the last 2 years.
but it's important. You can't have those conversations without developing your relationship, because it's never going to be about what you said unless they can use it against you. It's going to be about what they hear and what they see you doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is very important. One last piece of housekeeping. Jeannie talked earlier about having our 12-year-old make medical decisions.
No, I didn't have her make medical decisions. I had her tell them what she wanted.
Correct.
And then I stepped in as mama to say, she says it makes her feel this way. She says it upsets her stomach. She doesn't want to do this, and I'm going to stand with her.
Correct.
And make the choice.
You tell us, give us the information that we don't have because we're not on the inside of your body. We do not know what your head feels like, with this particular medication. So I just want to put that out there because
we didn't let her make the decision. It was the lesson in, you have a voice to tell me what you're going through, and then I can be the peace.
The reason I say that is because there is this absurd idea in culture with some people that a 5-year-old can make life-altering decisions.
Yeah, I understand.
Or you are autonomous. You are your own person. You can decide X, Y, or Z. And I say that is horse crap, because part of stewarding your family is teaching your children to think critically until they get to a point to where they can be responsible to make choices. And that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that. So I wanted to just clarify that really quickly.
The point of that was to allow her the ability to say how she felt, what she was going with. And then that left the decision to me, because I asked the questions. When she said it didn't make her feel good, it made her stomach upset. That put me in a position to say, okay, what else do you have?
Mm-hmm.
Is there another medication? Is there something else that we can do? And then I gave her the option. Do you want to try the stuff that goes in the IV? Do you want to try something you have to swallow? It's not about letting her make the choice. It was about giving her a voice to talk to me, to tell me.
Yes.
Because they were making, and this is why we did it, they were making decisions about her surgery. The lady came in and started talking about all of these possible scenarios that were at the worst possible scenarios. Because we have to know before we sign the waiver that says, you've explained all this to me. But they didn't take into consideration that there is a 12-year-old child lying in this bed listening to you who comprehends what you're saying.
Yeah.
And all the while you're talking to me, she's hiding under a washcloth, hiding from the light because she has a headache, and she's sobbing to herself because this person just said, I could die. This person just said, I could lose this function. This person and it was like, I had to stop the conversation and remind them, she is going to tell you how she feels. She is going to tell you when you want to know how her eating is going, how her head feels, how she's, emotionally.
Yeah.
Those are things that she needs to answer for you. And I'm going to be in the room, whether you like me there or not.
Correct.
But when it comes to all of these things that should not be a child's worry, you're not going to talk to me about them in front of her.
Yeah.
And upset her. We're going to go outside and have the conversation. But in that scenario, because I deflected to her or deferred to her and said, "What do you want to do? How do you feel about this?" It pissed the doctor off, but the point of it was for her to know, I'm not going to just let them make decisions. I want you to tell me so I can help you.
Correct.
And that's what it was. It was a matter of taking the child who was afraid to use her voice for so many years and finally giving her permission to say, you can use your voice and I'm going to hear what you have to say. And then we'll make a decision together on what needs to happen. That's what that was. We don't
And
they don't make big decisions without parental guidance.
Well, and now she uses her voice, and it has a lot of humor in it.
Yes, it does.
It's really entertaining.
Her smart assness is brilliant. I love it.
Well, this thing has gone well over an hour and 30 minutes now, and so I am thankful. I've asked you to get more involved in planning podcast episodes. That was a sticky note. It's a start. And so and so I appreciate it. It's important for you to put some planning into these episodes because it gives people a different.
Planned. This was one of those things that you said something and my brain went, he needs to talk about that. Well, and I still didn't know what it looked like until today when we did some things prior to this episode. And I was like, oh, I know where this is going. I know what this is for now. So,
okay. Well, I hope it helped. As long as you're satisfied I'm
very satisfied.
It met the expectation that you had, then we're good. Any final thoughts?
If you are struggling to understand this, or if you are trying to figure out what your philosophy or standard is, if you're not certain how to have the discussion with your spouse about what your family values are, please reach out to Quincy. Email him and let him help you. This isn't something that he just did overnight. It was something that we discussed multiple occasions on what we felt was right for our kids, what we felt was right for us, our non-negotiables. All of that is part of this structure. So if you are looking for maybe help with questions or how to present this, or because he's the head of the household, he's my husband, and he knows what it's like to bear the weight of the father, ask him and let him help you. Maybe he can point you in the right direction and some of the things that help him develop his philosophy on things.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, baby. Well, thank you.
I'm a you wife, you my husband. And what's the last part of it?
What is the last part of it?
I don't know. I'm waiting for you to do it.
No, you know what it is.
No, because you always say your name.
Say your name. Say my name. Say my name.
Not on the mic. I'm Jeannie Moran. That's Quincy Moran. And this has been Man vs. Marriage, the podcast.
Very nice. I accept.
Very nice.